Good morning, everyone. Catherine, how are you feeling? How's your migraine?
I'm much better. My
Good.
husband said that he took good care of me. I'm not sure I took good care of myself, but he helped.
Good. I'm glad he helped a little bit. Okay, let's do some Qigong. So I want to show you guys something. Some friends of ours came over last night, and they brought us a present. This is a well. Let me just show it to you. It's a piece of art, and it's quite detailed. It's a piece of ancient Chinese art, or a reproduction of it. So I'm going to try to hold it up to the camera in a way that you can actually see this. So I think I can hold this up in a way that you can see. All right. This is a rubbing from a carving in a Taoist temple, a very old Taoist temple in Beijing. And what it is, I don't know whether you can see this. You see the actual figure there. That figure, that drawing, is the human body as understood from the Taoist Qigong point of view. So this is the landscape of the internal energy body as they understood it 1,000 years ago. All right, so let me see if I can balance this up here. So we can kind of look at part of it here, right? So this line that comes up here, if you see that kind of valley, that's the spine. All right. This is I believe the middle Dan Chen. So we would think of that as the heart. All right. This is the lower Dan Chen. So our Dan Chen under the belly here. So the landscape and the animals that are in there all represent uh, physical parts of the body and functions of the body. And there's all this wonderful Chinese writing here. However, at the bottom, they've got an English translation of all that Chinese. So what I'm going to do is figure out how to photograph this section by section and also put the translations in so you can see. So this is kind of a Taoist way of looking at the body, right, from 1,000 years ago, and it's very famous. I've seen 100 versions of this, but I've never had one myself. This is this is from a rubbing, so this is a carving in stone in that monastery or temple. And actually, when you make the rubbing, you're going to get just the opposite. So all these lines that are black here would be white in the actual rubbing, but they've recreated it in reverse. So this is a modernized version of it. All right. Okay.
So what is the mysterious water wheel?
In the picture itself?
Yeah, is that the Dantian or because I when you were moving it, I just sort of captured that and I was like, I like this mysterious water wheel.
Okay, let's look at it because I'm not sure what you're talking about.
Well, I read about I read it in the bottom quick at some point, but I wasn't able to put a reference. Is there anything that looks like a water wheel?
I'm going. Is it this here down at the bottom?
I
I'm
don't
not
know.
sure.
Well, anyway.
I have not gone through this.
Oh, okay.
So
Yeah,
I'm not sure
it's
where
like
it
it
is.
popped out at me and I'm like, ooh,
Well, all right, I'll keep my eyes open for the
okay.
mysterious water wheel. Okay, so I think all three of you were here yesterday for the discussion of the Danshan in the center of the earth. Yes, you were all here, right? So I didn't have time. I wanted to say a few things about the Danshan in relationship to the whole body and to Taoist cosmology and how it kind of works. So you can look at the Danshan as just sort of a simple thing. So it's a ball, it's down here, and it creates all your movement. That's sort of the simplified version of it. But there are many more sophisticated versions. So another way to look at it is that it's built in layers, kind of the way we were looking at the center of the earth yesterday with the the innermost inner core, the inner core, the outer core, the mantle, and the crust of the earth. So you have five levels going on. You can identify at least four levels within the Danshan itself. So I don't know what the Chinese names of them are, but you can talk about the innermost inner core, which maybe is a good name for it would be the original nucleus, something like that. And you can think of that as very tiny. It's when you consider the dantians in the body, we call this one the dantian. And in our tradition, when we say dantian, we're talking about the dantian right below the navel. But that's not the only dantian in the body. There are actually dantians all up and down the center line of the body. And depending on the tradition you're working with, they usually identify three of those dantians as being the major ones. So the upper dantian is basically the third eye. The middle dantian is the heart, or sometimes the solar plexus. And the lower dantian is either the root chakra or, in our case, the belly chakra, right? The third chakra. So in our tradition, we actually sort of talk about three dantians: the lower one down here, the middle one, and the upper one. To me, it doesn't make any difference what tradition you're looking at. They all basically work the same way. One of the questions that always comes up is I kind of use the terms danshan and chakra more or less interchangeably. However, in China, they would object to that. And they would say a danshan is not a chakra, and a chakra is not a danshan. And they might differentiate them in the following way. A chakra is a gateway. A danshan is a storehouse. So the different danshans store energy, where a chakra takes you from where you are to someplace else. Personally, I think those are just two aspects of the same thing. So you can look at the most basic level of the danshan under the belly. This is the way I look at it. As a gateway. When you look at it that way, this point becomes what do they call it in the sciences when you get to a point that something just kind of disappears? Come on, Jack, help me. What's the term for that? Like a black hole is like this. What, Catherine?
Point?
What?
The vanishing point?
Well, yeah, but you got to have a scientific term for it.
Oh,
Blind spot.
Well, yeah, it's often a blind spot, that's for sure. It'll come back to me in a minute. Anyway, it's a place where everything goes in, and then everything disappears, and then you open up into a new world. So it's a doorway.
wait, is that the event horizon?
It's related to
Wormhole?
that. Yeah, sort of like that. God, this is one of the problems with getting older. It's like the word's right there, but it's disappearing into the distance. Yeah, event horizon is very, very close to the idea. It's a single word. It'll come back here in a minute. It is like an event horizon. It's like once you go past this point, you go into it's a singularity, right? It's a singularity. Everything goes into this point, and the point itself disappears, like a black hole, right? It's a doorway, so you're walking into a different world. At the very basic level, I think that's what the Danchen is. However, that's not all it is, right? So you can say that's like the root level, and personally, I associate that with the spiritual side of things, the spiritual body. It is not, in a certain sense, it's not of this world. It's of some different world. All right, there's another layer outside of that. So you can think of that as the core of the core of the core. And then there's another layer outside of that, and there's another layer outside of that, and there's another layer outside of that. And they literally grow, all right, until they fill your whole body and the space all around you. How many layers are there? Who knows exactly? But there's at least we can say there are 4 layers. And so it's very, very similar to the layered construction of the earth itself. All right? It's like an onion that you peel and peel and peel until you get down to the core. When you do meditation, even if it's just for a minute, or whether you do serious meditation for an hour, you're going down through those layers to the core layer. It's not something that you make yourself do. It's something that you allow to happen. You can't make things like this happen. You can just prepare the circumstances so that it may happen. It's kind of like gardening. You can't make a garden grow. What you can do is prepare the soil and plant the seeds and water the seeds, and slowly the garden grows of itself. Right? So this core of the core of the core is it's your birthright. It's part of you. You don't have to go make it happen or find it. You just have to let it happen. So how do you let it happen? By stopping. You just stop. And when you stop, and you get quiet, it just happens on its own. The problem is stopping is difficult. You think about our lives, even those of us that are supposedly retired. My God, all day long I'm running around doing things and blah 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 blah. And you're just your mind and your energy body and your body, you're moving, right? Nothing ever stops. Even when you lay down at night to go to sleep, everything's still buzzing. So I think of that kind of random motion as a form of static. It's like you're full of static. Your mind is full of static. Your body is full of static, right? It's bzz, bzz, you're buzzing all the time. That static is so loud that you can't hear the silence. You can't stop because you're just busy vibrating all the time. So you have to learn how to just let that vibration go. How to let the noise of that static go. So one thing you can do is don't spend all your time on a computer watching videos. There's one thing you can do. But really the most important thing is just to be aware of the fact that you're full of static. Oh yeah, I'm full of static. And it actually kind of makes me tired and kind of wears me out, and it keeps me from hearing the silence. So the purpose of the little meditations that we do between Qigong exercises or beginning and ending a Tai Chi form is to just touch on that silence, just to remember that silence. You may not, if we just do this for a minute, you may not be able to drop all the static and really go into the silence deeply, but you can at least remember it. Oh yeah, I'm supposed to be quiet inside. What's the difference between you, your mind, your heart, and your body when it's in a state of, static versus when it's quiet? If you really want to discover what you are, you need to be quiet. Because the static is not you. The static is coming in from outside. Now, some of it is, you could say, is your own reaction to what is coming in from outside. But it's from the outside in. So, yeah, okay, that's you under a certain set of circumstances. If I have a live electrical line here without any insulation on it, and I grab that electrical line, right? Yeah, well, that's me being electrocuted. But is that really me? You have to let go of all that static. And our way of, there's lots of ways to do it, but our way of doing it is called Zhuang meditation, standing post meditation. Right? Just relax. Let yourself be quiet. Okay, well, this is a lecture, so I can't stay in meditation here, but you guys can. You can still listen to me with a little bit of your mind. It's such a relief to go into a moment or two of that kind of quietness. because you can just let go of all that interior static, the physical static, the mental static, the heart static. Just let it drop. Let go and let yourself start vibrating. And it's just a wonderful relief. So there's two things you can do that will really help promote that and that actually truly become a major part of this. One I mentioned yesterday. Keep your mind on your dantian. Whether you're doing this exercise, which is called All Becomes One, or whether you're doing this exercise, which is called Hugging the Tree, or whether you're doing this exercise, it doesn't matter what posture you're assuming. What matters is what you're doing inside. But let's just do this one since it's the basic one. Keep your mind on your dantian. And as I said yesterday, Master Zhang would say, you eyes go dantian, you ears go dantian, your nose go dantian, taste goes dantian. Everything is focused on the dantian. Just relax into that focus. The second thing is part of that program, but it's so important that you call it out separately. You breathe into the dantian. So it's called belly breathing or baby breathing because babies breathe like this. You don't breathe into the chest. You breathe into the dantian itself. So it's going to be very deep breathing. Now, you don't force the breathing. Right? You just breathe very, very deeply. The way to do it is to understand that when we have this kind of cartoon version of breathing. So we breathe into the chest and we think that when you breathe into the chest expands, and then when you breathe out, the chest relaxes. When you do abdominal breathing, it goes just the opposite way. When you breathe into the abdomen contracts. When you breathe out, the abdomen relaxes. Contract, relax. Breathe in, breathe out. Now the contraction is very, very light. It's almost more in the mind than it is in the body. So you're not contracting and lifting up, you're just relaxing. Right? You contract a little bit, you relax a little bit. You contract a little bit, you relax a little bit. What you're actually doing is lifting the pelvic floor when you contract, and then you're relaxing the pelvic floor when you relax. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. It's actually a very comfortable way to breathe. And what it does is it activates parts of the body that we normally kind of ignore. You all know the thoracic diaphragm. When you breathe in, the diaphragm drops. Right? When you breathe out, the diaphragm relaxes. Right? Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. That's the way we all breathe. We don't really think about it. But the thoracic diaphragm is not the only diaphragm in the body. In fact, it goes all the way around and connects to the pelvic diaphragm. And just like this one needs to drop, this one needs to come up. So what's happening is you're contracting in the center when you breathe in, and then you're relaxing when you breathe out. And you contract when you breathe in, and you relax when you breathe out. Now you're breathing with the whole body, the whole trunk, and not just part of it. And when you learn to sort of breathe that way, and it just becomes a habit, it's going to activate and bring all this part of the body online. There are prejudices in the modern human mind about parts of the body. The back is ignored, and everything under the navel is you don't even want to look at it, right? Because this is the bad part of the body. This is the good part. So it's about reclaiming your body. Master Zhang, right? When you talk about raising the pelvic diaphragm, Master Zhang would just say, right, bring your anus up. Relax your anus. Bring your anus up. Relax your anus. In fact, the anus, the anal structure, that is the pelvic diaphragm. And it is a huge complex of muscles. It's a very important part of the body. First of all, everything sits on it. Second, it's what connects the left and the right. And third, it's what the Dan Qian sits within. It's like a cup, right? And the Dan Qian sits inside that cup. So if it's not activated, or if you have kind of an unconscious prejudice against that part of the body, wow, you're really giving up on a big part of yourself. So part of the purpose of this kind of breathing is to reclaim the territory of your body, the lower bad territory that we sort of ignore. Does this make sense? Jill, does this make sense? Right? So it just, this kind of breathing is just a very gentle way of bringing your whole body together in the Dan Qian that sits in the pelvic chalice, you could say, right? Okay, so that's one of the major functions of paying attention to the Dan Qian, is to explore the Dan Qian as a gateway. So now you're looking at it really as a chakra. It's a gateway to, let's just call it a gateway to change, to transformation. The second way of thinking about it is more the breathing kind of thing. I mean, they're obviously closely connected, of reclaiming and reinvigorating the whole body, including the parts that are dirty, right? That we don't want to look at. Well, now we look at them. Okay, the second thing I wanted to mention, the very base of the Dan Qian, as a singularity, there is no movement there. It's absolutely still. This lowest level is the still point of the turning world. So you can be doing all this motion. Inside, at the base of the Dan Qian, nothing moves. It's the still point. Everything whirls around that. if you think about this, the center of the earth, right? The whole earth is moving. But the center of the earth doesn't move. Everything moves around the center. It's not a physical point. It's a metaphysical point. The still point doesn't move. So in a certain sense, it's like a gateway to this other way of being in the world or looking at the world. That is really, really important in Tai Chi and Qigong. Imagine you have no still point. Everything is moving. Well, how do you move if you don't have a still point to move from? Another way to say it is all of movement is relative. All right? I'm over here, I want to go over here, so I'm going from left to right. It's relative. The still point, there is no left or right. There's no up or down. There's no past or future. There's just the moment. It doesn't move. That's the thing you move from. That's the ground you move from. And it never changes. So a way to say it is instead of being relative, it's absolute. That's your absolute point. It's your personal absolute point. So when you meditate, what you are doing is letting yourself quiet down and touching that absolute point again. You're not making yourself do it, you're just allowing it to happen. That's the base layer. The next layer from there, you might say, is the layer of intention. So that's the mind. The next layer out from there is your energy layer. That's the place where energy starts to move in the body. The layer out from there is the physical layer. That's where the movement actually manifests. So you can say, although it has to move through 4 layers, all movement starts from stillness. It starts from that still point, and it pushes off from that still point out into the world. So you can talk about the Danshan being the origin of movement. Even though it's actually still and it never moves, it's the origin of movement. So how can it move? Well, it can move in any way at all, but an easy way to talk about it is it's going to move in the 3 axes we use to describe the 3-dimensional world that we live in, or you could say 4-dimensional world. So you can talk about movement in terms of circles and spirals. If you're moving in a straight line, it's just a spiral moving in that line. That is, it's a series of circles moving through time. And you can talk about the circles being front to back, or side to side, or level. Now, sometimes in Qigong and Tai Chi movement, they are purely one of those. And we actually practice those on purpose because they are purely one of those. You ought to know by now in Tai Chi that rarely are they purely one or the other. They're usually hybrid. Because our movement in the world, when you're moving in the world, you're using all those dimensions at the same time. The Tai Chi and Qigong are a study of moving through the dimensions. And so, as in all studies, you have to simplify everything in order to see it. and then kind of contemplate it for a while and bring it into your practice. So let's take these last few minutes here in the class and practice these 3 dimensions here. These are the simplest Qigong practices there are. You can do them in Qigong, you do them in Tai Chi. They're also the most important. The very basic foundation exercises are the most important. They're maybe not the flashiest, they're not as exciting as, doing all kinds of crazy stuff, but they're actually the most important. So the exercise I've seen masters do the most, right, is just this one. So I'll continue. So you may have noticed I closed my eyes sort of just spontaneously when I started doing that exercise, because it's also a meditation. You're meditating at the same time you're doing this, so you're actually exploring more than one level of the Dantian. There's the still point, and out of the still point comes the motion. Now you have at least 2 layers going on. You have stillness and motion, and you can feel both of them if you're quiet and relaxed. And switch direction. Continue. I'm going to talk over. You continue the exercise. All right, what are you doing? Are you meditating or are you moving? Well, you're doing both. That's what Tai Chi and Qigong are. You're doing both levels at the same time. Yes, you're moving, but inside, you're not moving. There's stillness and motion and an awareness of both. So they're interpenetrating each other. When you start the Tai Chi form, this is why Tai Chi is such an important version of Qigong, right? When you do the Tai Chi form, inside, nothing's moving. Outside, you're moving. But inside is a kind of stillness. When you watch Tai Chi practitioners, when you watch masters, and you think how beautiful and how graceful they are, what you're really responding to is the stillness inside the movement, the calm, the calmness inside the movement, even if the movement's fast. Okay, I'm going to take a break for 10 minutes or so, and then we're going to do the beginning Tai Chi class, and we're going to kind of take off from this and bring this into the beginning. Jill, yes.
Just a question. So like
Yeah.
when you talk about turning the Dantian, so if we were to relate it to what you were talking about yesterday with the Earth's core, so there's the inner core and the innermost inner core. So the innermost inner core is the part that stays still, but it's the inner core that's moving, if you were to relate.
I think of these two modalities, the earth itself and our individual thing, as parallel to each other. They're not necessarily exactly the same as each other. So when you say the Danshan is moving, yes, that's true. But the Danshan is also not moving. So there are, when you try to bring these things into words or into visual metaphors of some kind, it's very easy to lose the poetry of what's going on. To me, it's both things at the same time. And the words and the imagery are not as important as just the reality of this. I am moving. I'm also not moving. Can you do both at the same time? If you can, you become a Tai Chi master. If you can't, you're still a student.
Schrodinger's Tai Chi.
Something like that. If you open the box, is the cat alive or dead? Right? It's both at the same time. All right, guys, give me 10 minutes, and then we'll do the beginning Tai Chi class. I'll be right back.